The Tau are a corruption of society infringing on the borders of humanity's Imperium. Their ever-increasing attempts to expand their vile interstellar empire are the encroachment of a dark and filthy Xenos uprooting Imperial control and rousting rightful rulers from their places of power. Or at least so far as the Imperial propagators would have you believe. The truth is far worse. The Tau are a cancer. A despicable, wicked society based in lies, deceptions, and the utter control of its citizenry. In that way, it is not so different from the Imperium of Man, after all. The Imperium is a bloated, colossal machine that has continued through the last 10,000 years out of sheer impetus, willpower, refusal to die, and heartless enthusiasm to sacrifice its citizenry for whatsoever it sees fit. But the Tau are worse. For they are hypocrites. They propagate that their esteemed empire is the pinnacle of civilization, a golden beacon amongst the stars where all peoples can come and live of equal merit beneath their Tau Va, the so-called greater good. Yet they lie. Humanity, on the other hand, makes no such protestations. Threats of hellfire and damnation await the souls of those who refuse to serve the God Emperor in whatsoever way his Holy Inquisition sees fit. The Eldari, slaughterers, and renegades alike do not make an attempt to hide their haughtiness and disgust for the lesser races, as they call us. The Tyranids and Orcs are Xenos filth, wholly consumed with consumption and war, yet they are honest in their depravities. The Tau do attempt to make themselves be seen as good, which makes it all the worse when you discover the secrets lurking beneath the surface of this race, which we will get to in a moment. But before we discover the juiciest bits of this race, let us run through first their biology, their history, their society as it is. Only then can you truly appreciate the deviancy of this race from what it chooses to present to the galaxy as a whole. The Tau are a humanoid race. That is to say that they have a head, a torso, 2 arms and 2 legs at least. Their skin is rough, leathery, and coloured in a greyish blue, although variants among the species will differ to varying degrees. They possess 3 fingers and a thumb on each hand and have cloven feet. In place of a nose, each Tau possesses a small slit within their face for olfactory purposes. They are also smaller than a baseline human, and their struggle with depth perception means that their reaction times are mildly reduced. However, their eyes allow them to see deeper into the visual spectrum than humans and can far outdistance that of our own. Most notably of all, the Tau do not possess any psychic abilities whatsoever. They are virtually invisible in the warp, and this lack of psychic ability, together with their physical attributes and shorter lifespans, has meant that as a people, they have leaned heavily into technological advancement, which brings us into our next study, their history. The Tau began as a footnote in humanity's expedition fleets. 5,000 years ago, Adeptus Mechanicus explorator fleets located their homeworld of Tau and noted the race down for extermination at a later date. Simply another floating rock, habitable for humanity, and a Stone Age Xenos civilization waiting to be eradicated. Suddenly, ferocious warp storms whipped up around the planet and its immediate galactic area, preventing warp travel both in and out. The world was soon forgotten about and left ignored for thousands of years, until the interstellar expansion of this upstart race poured out of the dying warp storm. During the 35th millennium, the Tau were, as all civilizations are wont to do, barbaric in all things. As soon as one discovers fire, the immediate impulse is to use it. The same it was for this race. War, barbarism, the destruction of those deemed other. In any other situation, this race seemed dead set on near annihilating itself with nary a helping hand from the Imperium of Man. One night, just before the culmination of a large confrontation, mysterious figures appeared to the leaders of the warring tribes and sued for peace. Negotiations were brokered, accords made, and peace made at last. These strangers, Tau though they were, named themselves the Ethereals. Through the peace, the warring tribes were divided into castes: air, earth, water, and fire, with the final ethereal caste ruling the race through their wisdom. Or at least on the surface. Tau society. Caste systems? Already the Tau are off to a disturbing start, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll get to the darker parts when we get there. Each of these castes is dedicated to an area of their society deemed essential. The air caste, known as Kor, are messengers, pilots, and fleet bearers. Theirs is the province of interstellar travel between worlds. The earth caste, known as Fio, are the creators. Theirs is the focus of building, maintenance, artisans, technology, and engineers, and are responsible for the Tau's bounding leaps in technological prowess. The water caste, known as Por, are merchants, diplomats, and propagandists. Theirs is the focus of communication, coordination, and cooperation. The fire caste, known as Shas, are the warriors of the Tau. They are born to protect, to fight, and to defend the Tau Empire from the horrors of an ignorant and malicious galaxy. Presiding over these four castes is the Ethereal caste, those who brought peace to the world of Tau and set them on a course for galactic expansion. Within these castes are ranked systems based on merit, age, and requirements. The ranks, from low to high, are as follows: Sal, La, Wi, Vre, El, and O. In Tau society, rank is respected across the septs, for the most part at least. Those who are a higher rank not only have more experience, but are, at least in the Tau's minds, more committed to the greater good. But what is the greater good? The greater good is the title of the driving force behind the Tau society. That is to say, it is the lie behind which the Ethereals exert their influence over the population. It is the Orwellian lie. What is good for you is good for me is good for us. We must work together for this intangible ideal. Do your part, and good things will follow for the entire race. A far simpler statement than "do as I say." Needless to say, thanks to the efforts of the extremely talented Watercast and generations of enforcement within this belief system, the vast majority of the Tau wholeheartedly believe in this system. No questions, no doubts, simply obeisance, in the hope that their efforts will lead the Tau Empire into a glorious age of prosperity and peace. It is in the name of this greater good that the Tau Empire has colonized and crusaded throughout their relatively small region within the galactic eastern fringes. Oops, my mistake. I call it how it is. However, to those within the Tau Empire, these outward pushes are known as spheres of expansion, a flowery description for diplomatic and military missions that employ bribery, corruption, and occasionally all-out war. A rose by any other name and all that. The spheres of expansion, are launched under the banner of bringing peace and illumination to a dark and primitive galaxy. There have been 5 of them to date within the current setting. Each sphere of expansion undergoing consolidation of new territories and reinforcement, before being used as a staging ground for newer invasions. As one might expect within a galaxy teeming with life, this has led to the Tau Empire coming into contact with species not of their biology. Given that the Great Crusade, wherein the Emperor and his legions exterminated a great number of Xenos threats that they came into contact with, the eastern fringes were rather more diverse in their variety of Xenos. In each case, the Tau approach has been the same. First, diplomacy. An open invitation to join the Tau Empire as partners, to share in the ideals and benefits from serving the greater good, to become partners within an alliance that will succeed in its growth throughout the galaxy. The Watercast are crucial in displaying culture-adapted messages and offers to the unique races that they encounter. Secondly, If diplomacy fails, watercast agents inquire for societal fractures within a planet's culture. If a race's ruling class is too ignorant to see the benefits of the greater good, then surely there must be more like-minded, intelligent beings within the culture. These splinter factions or rebels are approached with promises of support, technology, and resources, under the consideration that once a planet's leadership has changed, the new rulers will reconsider the Tau's proposal. This is preferable to war, as a planet that celebrates its own independence from a tyrannical or ignorant rulers can celebrate its new purpose. They can rejoice in their own identity as they openly choose to join the burgeoning Tau Empire. Finally, if no other options are available and all avenues have been exhausted, the Tau will invade by force. For if an ignorant child is drowning, it may lash out at the adult attempting to save it. Therefore, as the adults in their scenario, the Tau Empire must use force to save this childish culture. Cloaked Pathfinder teams will identify key targets and highlight them for destruction. Robotic drones will hamper and ambush enemy forces. Cadres of Fire Warrior teams armed with long-range, powerful pulse rifles will annihilate enemy combatants before they mount a threat. Powerful battle chutes and gunships will pound down enemy armor with inordinate levels of firepower, all coordinated with precision from the minds of the greatest Fire Warrior commanders. Once a planet is converted, or pacified, vast re-education systems are enforced, along with the finest of industrial and economical changes. It's far easier to educate a population about the greater good when their living standards have drastically improved. Clean air and plentiful nourishment work wonders along the watercast's propaganda, until a planet is joyful to be under the oversight of the Tau's leadership. With the increased presence of other Xenos in the immediate galactic areas surrounding the Tau, it's unsurprising that a number of Xenos species have joined the Tau Empire, whether voluntarily or forcefully. This has led to Tau spheres of expansion becoming ever more populated with a variety of Xenos units. Kroot, avian-like humanoids with an incredible biology that allows them to rapidly mutate according to their diet. Vespids, an insectoid race gifted with incredible crystalline technology. Nikasar, a highly psychic Ursine race that serve as gifted psykers, guiding the Tau fleets across their spheres of expansion. And finally, the worst of all, Guevesa, humans. The less said about these traitors, the better. These men and women on worlds conquered by the Tau fleets fail to stay true to humanity and our God Emperor. They turn on their duty and loyalty and serve a Xenos Empire. There is no force in this galaxy that can wash away the stain on their souls and their spirits. May the God Emperor roast them in the fires of damnation for all eternity. The evil of the Tau Empire. Until now, we have spoken, or I have bored you about, the Tau themselves, their member races, their aggressive bursts through the stars, their greatest lie, and the ethereals themselves. Which is why I wish to discuss, briefly, the ethereals. Far beyond being the iron-fisted rulers of the Tau as a whole, the ethereals are something else. The Imperium speculate whether it may be a form of mind control, or a pheromone-induced hold over the Tau within their vicinity. But they have a form of power over the minds, bodies, and spirits of the Tau race. But I would like to grant you real situations. In one such case, an evacuation has gone wrong. Tau citizens are expected to evacuate only the highest-ranking officials, those who will serve the greater good in the best way. The rest of the citizens are expected to simply watch as the evacuation train departs the doomed city. Panic and self-preservation erupt along the platform as citizens who do not wish to die begin a mob frenzy, crushing other Tau in their attempts to board or block the train. The scene is pandemonium as dozens are crushed and hundreds more revert to baseline primitive instincts to survive. Until an ethereal arrives. The crowd is stopped. Even those being crushed to death stop struggling. Order takes over, the evacuation continues, and those left to die simply witness the train leaving, all from the presence of a single ethereal. In another situation, a water-caste ambassador is called to account for an outburst made by one of her subordinates. The ethereal gently speaks to the ambassador for a while, before instructing her to take out her knife and kill herself. Take the bonding knife out of its sheath. Wordlessly, she did so. The metal blade slid from its housing with a soft hiss. Something burned behind her eyes, in her throat, in her guts, making it hard to think. Now kill yourself. Wellclaim reversed the knife in her hands and stabbed herself in the chest as hard as she could, burying the knife up to the hilt in her own heart. Eyes wide, she gasped out a welling glut of blood, toppled over, and spasmed her last. A delta of crimson spread out from beneath her, rivulets tracing the hexagonal mosaic tiles of the ethereals, bringing calm to Feotorn. "Clear this up," said Aunvar to his Shastralgart, "and find the other one." In both of these scenarios, the ethereals are shown to have a formidable power over their fellow Tau. In the former, it is wordless and widespread. In the latter, it is spoken, concentrated, and direct. This leads me to a horrifying conclusion. The ethereal Tau are predators. While perhaps not entirely biologically removed from the majority of Tau physiology, they are the predators of the Tau race. In animal kingdoms from biospheres across the galaxy, predators and prey emerge within their ecosystems. The ethereal hypnosis, pheromone control, or psychic influence, although psychic ability has been ruled out in the case of the Tau, is a strength that allowed the ethereals to become the top of the food chain predators in their own world. Yet prepossessed of an intelligence, or a deep-seated hunger, why should their control be limited to simply one world? Thus began their plan of galaxy-wide Tau domination. For if the Tau dominate the galaxy, and the ethereals dominate the Tau, who can stop them? Yet, not all Tau fall under the sway of these predators. Side note, that was a terrible joke, but I'm still proud of it. Side note over. The Farsight Enclaves are a sub-faction that are split apart from the Tau Empire as a whole, although they do still consider themselves kindred. Their success at independence is due, in part, to their relative isolation, shielded from the Tau Empire by the Damocles Gulf, and due to the efforts of their commander Farsight and his extensive skills, tactics, wisdom, and inspiration to his warriors. The tale is long, and well worth an entry in its own right. Commander Farsight, also known as Chasseur Viorla Chauvin Cais Montir, was a warrior born, a natural leader, ferocious in battle, wise in tactics, and swift in retribution. His efforts spearheaded the reclamation of many Tau worlds that had been claimed by the Imperium. He hunted orcs through systems to raise their planets of operation and fought daemons of the warp without knowledge or experience. Already he doubted the ethereal caste. His mind nagged at the possibilities that his wise and glorious leaders were fallible, if not downright tyrannical. His personality and acclaim threatened the ethereals, and he was to be reined in before too long. Yet, thanks to a stroke of luck, or fate, all ethereals with his expedition died. Without the mysterious influence and control that the ethereals exuded, and filled with a sense of betrayal at not receiving the support that was required, Farsight's enclaves vanished from the communication relays and probes sent across the Damocles Gulf. It was assumed, for a time, that the expedition was lost, and after many years that would have seen Farsight's life come to a natural end, it was assumed that their long-lost hero was certainly dead, perished, either in battle against an unknown foe, or succumbed to old age on a distant planet. And yet, newly designed long-range probes began to identify a string of heavily fortified Tau worlds on the other side of the Gulf. Worlds not just surviving, but thriving, with a blockade fleet that solidified the sovereignty of its interstellar space, and worlds bustling with technological efficiency. But more than this, it became more apparent than ever that Commander Farsight, the hero of Vior-La, the greatest successor of Commander Puretide, still lived, and led his forces personally. With the short lifespans of the Tau species, Farsight living over 3 Terran centuries both astounds and frightens the Ethereals. For they believe both power and longevity should belong exclusively to them. The truth is that Farsight wields a deadly weapon named the Dawnblade. Unique and deadly, this weapon is both a curse and a blessing for Commander Farsight. It was forged millennia ago by a forgotten Xenos race. This blade can slice through the heaviest of armor and even damage the most fearsome of foes. Made with chronophagic alloys, the natural lifespan of each life it takes is added to the wielder's. A blessing, for it allows Farsight to overcome the harshest of his Enclave's enemies and bestows upon him the years to guide and shape the future of those under his protection. A curse, for if he ever realized the truth, the hero would be harrowed to his very soul. And now the goddess, Tau. As we know, in the universe of 40k, gods exist. Quite aside from our holy god emperor, there exist dark entities in the warp. Craven, parasitical gods that manifest from the cruelest of urges, desires, and emotions that have coalesced from the minds of latent psychic species. The Tau have next to no presence in the warp, so clearly there cannot be a god associated with their race, right? Well, not exactly. There was something out there in the swirls. A vast entity, built like a Tau as much as a human, but with far too many arms. Some of those limbs appeared to have 5 fingers, others 4 digits, like the Tau, or the bird-like talons of the Kroot. Some ended in ursine claws or waving tendrils, much like those of the fungus creature that had worked its spell on his bridge. Many of the hands held blades, but others cornucopias, quills, or patches of flickering light. Where its face should be, it had nothing at all, just a blank cliff of pale flesh. Excerpt from Shadowsun, the Patient Hunter by Phil Kelly. The Tau themselves may have little to no psychic presence, yet their empire is a multi-species one, and many of their allies do have a psychic presence. Humans in Nikasar especially have a powerful warp sensitivity, especially after the psychic awakening. The problem is that the Tau's belief in a philosophy or concept possesses very little distinction between belief in a god. The line between those two definitions is hazy at best, and for those with an innate connection to the warp, non-existent. The psychic resonance of the Tau's allies, believing in the greater good, swallowing the propaganda from the Watercast's ideologies, craving the personification of an idea, has, for better or worse, spawned a new god within the warp. When worlds are under attack, Gwei Versa will not huddle and hope that rationale will win and a stratagem will save the day. They will instinctively pray to anything. A deus ex machina, a miracle, and so miracles are born. But how do the Tau react to this? Shadowsun, for her part, accepts it for what it is, a potential boon, a worthwhile risk outweighed by the good that the other races can offer to the Tau Empire. Others, meanwhile, are appalled at the twisted reality of this philosophical concept given form. The Ethereals? Well, if they know about it, they are keeping it to themselves, at least until they can find a way to control this warp entity. Wacky Tau theory. New Necron tier? Now we've touched on a bunch of stuff. Nothing new for the old players, but certainly the good bits. However, part of the reason 40k is so great revolves around the constantly evolving and developing lore. It's not set in stone. Each faction or character is constantly in a state of potentiality. Writers behind the scenes remain vague, drop hints at several different motives or plots, and wait for the perfect moment to confirm a single story. And it makes us, the readers, go crazy every single time. With that said, there are theories revolving around every faction in the lore, and one of the more well-known theories about the Tau may bring their story into greater contact with another race, the Necrons. But why the Necrons? Well, before the galaxy tore itself apart, before the coming of the Emperor, before the Dark Age of technology, millions of years ago, gods strode both the Materium and Immaterium. The Necrontyr, young, foolish, and trapped in agony written into their DNA, made a choice. An awful choice. They sacrificed their bodies and transferred their entire race into suits of necrodermis, living metal. They became undying, unending, unfeeling. The price of this transaction was the soul of each and every Necrontyr. Thus, the genesis of the Necrons began. But what if certain Necrons had regrets? What if those automata grew weary of their metal prisons over millennia? There is more, of course, but for the sake of brevity, let us skip over the whys and wherefores. The theory, as it goes, suggests that the Tau's abnormally rapid evolution, and their lack of psychic presence within the warp, is not random chance, but by design. By the design of immortals whose meticulous planning is measured not in mere years, but millennia. The perfect biological hosts for Necron consciousness to be reborn into flesh. The chance for Necrontyr to rise again as they were once long ago. But there are untold numbers of Necrons, and so far the Tau do not have the numbers necessary for soul transference on the levels that the Necrons require. Perhaps this empire is just another weave of the Silent King's plans for his race. Or then again, perhaps not. Perhaps we simply read too much into these things. Perhaps it is our imaginations running wild. Time will tell. But until then, hate the Xenos. Purge them from the stars that are humanity's birthright. And beware the ethereals, for not even the Tau fully comprehend what they are. Thank you very much for listening. I've been away for a while, so I'm hoping to get back into finishing multiple videos and cranking them out again for your enjoyment. While you're here, I'd appreciate a like, comment, or subscribe. I'm still finding my feet with the channel, so let me know if you enjoyed this entry on the Tau. Also, yes, I have not fully touched on the latest Sphere expansions for one simple reason. They are deserving of videos in their own right. So while most of my videos are currently generic, I believe that diving into specific discussions will be fruitless without the bread and butter of the setting prepared in the first place. So do let me know if you have any specific subjects you'd like me to prepare, and I'll see when I can do them. Anywho, enjoy your day or night, and I hope you've indulged in some escapism from reality. For that's why we are here, isn't it? Until next time.